This is how I brainwashed myself into success, and in this YouTube video I'm going to be going over about a little bit of my background as it pertains to an income level that some people really only dream about, and a little bit about my story, because I feel like anybody, if they really put their mind to it, can do anything, can be as successful as they want to be. It's going to be a little bit vulnerable, a little bit personal, and I hope it resonates with you. Enjoy. So as a little girl, I grew up in a household of 5 kids, and my parents were like the picture perfect family until I was 13. And growing up, super in church, very religious household, very strict, and I thought everything was like really perfect. Thought everything was cool, thought everything was great. We really didn't have much. At one point, even lived on a car lot, and had like our house in the front was like the car lot where my dad would work on cars and stuff. And like I think my mom cooked on a hot plate at one point, but I never really felt like we didn't have much. Like I had no idea. And my mom did a lot of Mary Kay, like network marketing, and so in my room I would have like these Mary Kay posters, and we talk about goals and like shoot for the moon so that you can land among the stars. And I really believed that anything could be possible for me. Like I truly believed that if I thought about it or dreamt it, like I would have it. And the problem was that I believed it, because later on in my life, I felt like my family really wanted me to be more realistic, or they didn't understand why I was so money hungry, or I was chasing success, and that I needed to calm down and I needed to have better priorities. But there was something inside of me that like really, really, really wanted more for my life. And my story was definitely not the funnest aspect of life. Today, I am here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I am in the 7th level office. 7th level acquired my company in March. I started my company in October, sales training company specifically for women. And right now, I'm aligned with a company where we've helped over 445,000 clients in sales in 158 different industries. I work with women every single day, helping them learn how to sell in a way that feels aligned to who they are. I love what I do. I have a beautiful 11-year-old little girl. I'm in a great relationship. I'm healthy, I'm happy, and like I never thought that I would be here today, especially from like where I started out. And part of me, if this is a little graphic, but I remember not even 6-7 years ago, like being on my living room floor in a fetal position, like being kicked in my stomach over and over and over again, thinking like I was going to die that night by my ex-husband, who was extremely drunk at the time. And I'm like looking up at the sky. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm screaming, but I'm not trying to be too loud because my 3-year-old daughter is in the next room asleep, or I thought she was asleep. And I'm also thinking that I might die tonight if I don't come up with this plan. And I don't know if you've ever felt like things have aligned in a certain way, because I felt like in that moment, I learned something that I didn't know was going to affect me to today. I get this brilliant idea at this point where I'm like, maybe I can convince him that I'm the one drunk and that he's not, and that he needs to call somebody to get help for me. Right? So I come up with this plan in my head, and like in this moment, I'm like in a survival mode, like I'm trying to live. And I like start telling him about how great he is and how amazing he is, and I don't deserve to be with him. And I'm like, I'm drunk, like I shouldn't even be here. It's not appropriate for me to be around you. And I convinced this guy to call his mom at 4 o'clock in the morning to come over to my house. And he comes over to my house, and she comes over to my house at 4 o'clock in the morning and literally saved my life that night, because somehow I was able to convince him and persuade him that I was the one that messed up and not him. And she comes over, and I remember he like threw her up against the wall, and I ran into the restroom, and I had my phone, which was dead at the time, and a charger, and I'm like charging my phone in the bathroom, and all of a sudden, like he starts kicking in the door. And the door is like this, right? And I'm like here in the bathroom, and I'm charging. I'm like, please turn on, because I'm trying to call the cops. And all of a sudden the door keeps kicking in, and all of a sudden it kicks in half. And as soon as it kicked in half, all of a sudden I have it on speaker. It says 911, what's your emergency? And I started like bawling my eyes out, because they left the house. And I'm like, hey, like please come help me. And so like cops came to help me. And in that moment, I had no idea that like God was really preparing me to have a natural ability to influence and persuade. And I feel like that moment was like starting to cultivate it. And I don't mean to tell you this to have you feel sorry for me or, or trigger you. I know 1 in 3 women have been through some type of assault, whether it's mental, emotional, sexual, physical. And, I really, really have a passion in life to be able to help women get through that. The reason why I'm telling you this is because there are moments in our life that can be catastrophic, and you can take those moments and you can turn them into something personal. You can turn them into something powerful that can help push you and drive you, or you can use those moments to be the reason as to why you don't do anything. Because in that moment in my life, after I finally got rid of this guy, I was the most depressed that I've ever been, and I felt like an empty shell walking around. I was overweight, didn't feel good, and I was like, you know what I can do is do something that would scare the crap out of me. And at the time I was a waitress for 10 years in this time period, and I find out that my chef at my work is a bodybuilder. And I look online that night and I found out that there were women that also competed in bodybuilding, and they looked like muscly Barbies. And I'm like, how the hell do I look like that? I want to become like that. I want to have the body like that, have the confidence that they had. Like, they just looked like they were confident and powerful. I'm like, man, I want to be like that. So I take a picture and I go to LA Fitness the next day and I show this picture to a trainer. I'm like, please, I want to do this. I want to look like this. And I remember this moment was so slow, because this guy takes a step back and just looks at me up and down. And really took a moment there. It was kind of awkward. And he's like, it's going to take you a year to even get close to looking like this. And in 9 months, I won my first show. I got first place. And in that moment of time, I brainwashed myself to get first place. And I'll tell you how I did that, because it's happened many, many times in my life afterwards. I started seeing this pattern of what was possible. I worked with that trainer for a few months, realized that he really wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, and found a new trainer at a bodybuilding official gym and went there and worked with him for 4 months, and he got me prepared for my show. And every single day while I was training, he would go, first place, you're a champion, first place. And he'd be like, imagine you getting first place. He's like, your competitors are coming up against you, one more rep, you got it. And every single day, I would imagine getting first place. I was also imagining all the pain and all the suffering that I went through, and I would use that pain to keep pushing me forward. And I would get on these Stairmasters or treadmills, and I would listen to motivational stuff. I got introduced to Tony Robbins, and I introduced to people that started pouring into me every single day. For hours a day, just pouring into my mind. My mom said as a little girl, we're all carrying a basket around, and whatever goes into your basket comes out of your basket. So if every single day I have somebody telling me, you're a champion, I believe in you, and I have all these people motivating me and pouring into me, guess what was coming out? Inspirational thinking, thinking bigger, thinking more, thinking that I was capable of becoming more, that I was capable of possibilities. I started believing in myself, right? And from that moment, I feel like everything started really changing. As soon as I got that reward, it was I proved to myself that anything was possible for me. And from that moment, I decided to get all this stuff out of my system. So I write a blog called Embracing Your Inner Badass, and I start writing about all the stuff that had happened in my childhood and my life, a lot of stuff with my dad, a lot of stuff I still had pain with. And I published this blog, and it really hurt my family. And I felt like I was supposed to do at the time. I apologize for hurting them in any way. What happened from this situation is I had a client pick up this blog and send it to a friend of hers who was on the board of the Lamborghini Festival in Houston. Turns out that they needed a spokesmodel for the event, looked me up, and were like, we love how you think, we love how you write, we love who you are, I want you to come and speak for our event. And this event had 30,000 people in it. And one was at a private airplane hangar with all these exotic sports cars. I'd never been around anything like that in my life. And I get this opportunity to be there. And it was so cool. And I meet somebody there. And an array of events happened where somebody stole this lady's purse that had her car keys in it that I was supposed to ride with. And I had to get back home to meet my babysitter. And I had to end up having to ride in this guy's car all the way home, which is so cool because I'd never been in an exotic sports car before. And we're having this long conversation about life and about, all this cool stuff. And I was so intrigued. And the next day I find out that the same guy knew Tony Robbins personally. And at the time I was obsessed because I was listening to Tony Robbins every day on a Stairmaster for an hour a day. So I'm like, how the hell does this guy know Tony Robbins? So I wait till the end of the night. It's 10 p.m. I walk up to him the second day of the festival. I'm like, I found out that you know Tony Robbins. How do you know him? And he's asking me, who told you that? And I tell him, and he tells me that, his mentor Tony. I'm like, a mentor? Like, I've never even heard of anything like that. I'm like, how do you get a mentor? Who was his mentor? He's like, well, my personal mentor was Jim Rohn, who also mentored Tony Robbins. I'm like, can I get a mentor like that? He's like, are you serious? I'm like, yes, I'm serious. Like, I was so freaking hungry, and I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired that I wanted something more for my life. And in this moment, he told me if I go home and I listen to The Challenge to Succeed by Jim Rohn 10 times, he would have a conversation with me. At this point, I'm desperate. I'm going to do whatever the heck I need to do. I go home, I buy the thing, I listen to it 4 or 5 hours long. I message him the next day, 1 down, 9 to go. He's like, are you serious? And I'm like, yes. And that Friday, I met him at a coffee shop, and I was telling him all the stuff that had happened in my life. About going through the physical abuse, about, dropping out of school multiple times, about, my family and all the reasons why I couldn't be successful, and just such a victim mindset. I was bawling my eyes out, so frustrated by life, so frustrated with the cards that had been dealt to me. And, he basically asked me to take a leap of faith and offered me my first sales job in B2B. And so at that moment, I was in school again for biochemistry and molecular biology, pre-med, had a 4.0, and I was working at a restaurant at the time. I was also doing a personal training business in the morning, and I literally quit my business, quit my job, quit school, and started with him on that Monday in sales. And little did I know, I knew absolutely nothing. I sucked so bad. I didn't know what I was doing. I was stuttering. I was awkward. And they were telling me to go learn from the old sales gurus in these books. And I was buying all these trainings, and I was learning, and some things were working, some things were not. And at the same time, because I was so obsessed with Tony, I would start going to his seminars, and I started working in his seminars, and I worked on his career team for 3 years. And I was learning about behavioral psychology, and I was learning about NLP and strategic intervention, and how to get people to pivot, how to get people to interrupt their pattern and think something new. Even if they thought one way 5 years, how can they think another way for the next 5 years? And I'm like, if this is how the brain works, and the salespeople are telling me to say this, it just wasn't making sense in my head. And finally, I got an opportunity to kind of go off on my own. I worked at that sales company for 2 years in B2B, and then got an opportunity to go out on my own. And I was like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And right at that moment, COVID hit. COVID hit. Basically got let go of my job right in that transition of wanting to go out on my own. Had all my income be ripped from my hands. Had to be stuck in a home, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And I found myself in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment in Houston, Texas. My daughter is in the living room. I'm in the bedroom, and I'm looking around at my home, and I'm realizing that rent is due, and I am short by $756. And I maxed out my credit cards. I have no one I can call. No one in my family has money. And I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do at this point? And at the time, I was crewing the very first Tony Robbins UPW virtual event, and I felt in my body, I'm like, I have to leave here if I want to do something in my life. So I look around my apartment, and I'm like, screw it. I'm going. I'm leaving. I'm doing something. And there was a program that was teaching you how to sell online, which I had no idea how to do, and it was $12 grand. I had to put $3,000 down. And I didn't have that money at all. I'm like, well, screw it. So I sold my kids' furniture that night. I sold my furniture. I literally slept on the ground. I sold pans, pots. I sold a mirror, a desk, carpet. I sold literally anything in my apartment, all the way up to whatever left could fit in a 2-door little car. And I packed up my 2-door little car. I raised $4,200 in 36 hours. And my daughter and I left from Houston and moved to Miami. And we knew no one there. We stayed in an Airbnb room, a room that was covered in cockroaches. It was really disgusting. And I woke up every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I studied this program because I knew I wouldn't be able to pay the second payment of this program. And so I needed to learn how to sell online as fast as possible. And I got my first client, my first $10,000 client. And I worked my ass off, and I was networking with as many people as possible. I would get on Zooms every single day, meeting people and Bumble friends, Bumble business, and just trying to network. Who do I need to know in the city? Who do I need to know in the city? And literally changed everything for me. Met people that were, involved with investors, met people that, knew other people, and started creating a name for myself in the city, got into B2C sales and had to start doing 220 calls a day. Found out that I really knew nothing in that regard either, and started learning, started making a little bit of money. I think about 15K a month at that point, which is way better than what I was used to, but it still like wasn't even close to what I wanted because everything that I did felt super out of alignment for me. It was very masculine, very pushy sales, very abrupt. People would hang up on me, cuss me out, chew me out on the phone. Like, it was such a dog eat dog world. I was full of other salespeople that were around me that were all guys. I felt like I was competing every day. Like, I looked at that phone and I felt like I wanted to puke and I didn't want to pick it up, but I knew that I would have to try so I could get more sales so I could take care of my daughter. And, you know, from going through that and realizing that that felt out of alignment for me, I'm like, how do I do this in a way that actually uses what I've learned with strategic intervention and NLP and behavioral psychology, and also that uses personal development? I went through a lot of, you know, trauma breakthrough work and learning how to heal myself. And I'm like, how do I combine all this together and really do something? And so I'm like, I'm going to start helping women learn how to sell. So I created my first sales training program. I had 11 women in a group. It was called Sell Like a Badass. And I'm helping all these women. I'm giving them my time for money, right? Like, time for money. I had no idea how to run a business. And I was making great money at the time. I was making a lot of money at the time, like at least 20K a week. Like, I was pulling it in. I thought I was like living large, and I hated it. I hated it. I was like, literally, there's no more time that I can give in order to bring in more money. Like, I let it cap myself. And so I let the program run its course. Meanwhile, I'm doing a lot of, again, more trauma work. I went through a really, really serious trauma program called Ascension Leadership Academy, and that tested me, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And at that point, I found a new opportunity to go back into a sales role. And so I go back into a sales role. I'm doing event sales. I'm selling for big events that have giants in it, like Alex Hormozi, Patrick Bet-David, Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm running a team of 14 guys. We're doing $800,000 in revenue a month. Like, I'm like taking over, like learning so much stuff. And I just felt like I wanted to do my own thing. I had so many opportunities to go into business, and I won't discuss all of these, but I had 2 or 3 opportunities where I went to go be someone's business partner, and then I didn't sign paperwork. Ladies always sign paperwork, and it didn't work out in my favor. And I had a lot of money that I thought I was going to get that never came to me because I didn't sign anything. And so I'm like, screw it. I'm going to build my own company. I learned how to run a business. I'm going to do my own. And so in October of this past year, almost a year ago, because it's September, 11 months ago, I built my own sales training program for women. And I built it right this time. I brought like 9 people in to build this company with me, and I like started building everything out, started learning, and dude, just trial after trial after trial. Like, we would make money, Stripe would hold money. Like, I just like found myself at a point of surrendering, of like getting on my knees and asking God, like, what the heck do you want me to do? Because if you want me to do this, you're gonna have to figure it out, because literally like all my money is frozen and I don't know what I'm gonna do. All my clients are making money. I feel stuck. And during this time, I've really felt like learning how to trust the process and learning how to build, learning how to get these women results. I'm like, if I can get them results, like, we're going to run a company. If I'm doing this to serve, to give back, to make a difference in their life, like, we're always going to be good. We're always going to move forward. And, you know, at this time, it's like December, January, our numbers start getting really good. And, you know, 7th level starts looking at us. And we have negotiations going back and forth. And in March, you know, they decided to acquire a company. They move us into 7th level. They create 7th level R.E.D, which is the feminine women's division for 7th level. And like, all this happened because every single time I felt like I would doubt myself, I would tell myself, like, no, like, you're gonna have the best sales training company in the world. No, like, this is your destiny. No, you got this. Like, you've been through so much stuff in your life. Like, you are gonna overcome this. Like, if anybody can handle this, Kayla, like, it's gonna be you. And I continuously just brainwash myself every single day to think that everything is happening for me. Like, all this is gonna happen for a reason. Like, your destiny is to help change women's lives. Your destiny is to help people. Like, don't think about you, just think about helping them, and you will always be successful. And if you're at a place in your life right now where you're like, why is this not happening for me? Or all these things are against me. Like, why haven't I been able to reach the levels that I wanted to reach? Like, just know that sometimes it takes you not giving up on yourself. Sometimes when things look like they're absolutely impossible, you trusting that a door is going to open or a window is going to open and you take it. Like, not giving up on yourself, keep pushing the limits, keep thriving, keep moving forward, and keep telling yourself that you have what it takes, asking for support, asking for people around you. Like, there's so much potential that you have. You're literally one of a kind. No one is like you. There's literally a 1 in a trillion chance that you're even born. And if you just realize how rare that is and how special you are, maybe, just maybe, you can take a leap of faith in yourself, because no one is going to do it for you except for you. You're the only person that's always going to have your back. You're never going to leave yourself. And if there's that one thing that you know you should be doing right now that maybe you haven't done because you're afraid of failing or you're afraid of what's going to happen, like, what if you just took a chance on yourself and just moved forward and just gave it all you got? Like, how would your life look just a little bit different? And I hope that this somewhat, inspires you. If you're a woman that's in sales, we have an amazing women group called Women in Sales on Facebook, where we do trainings every day. There's such an amazing community. Please check that out. My intention here is to serve, to honor, and our mission is to help, women in third world countries escape violent relationships, escape, work where they feel like they're sexualized, and like, get out of bad situations and acquire skills like sales so they can have a different life, so they can change their lives. And, if you have a desire in your heart to want more, like it's there for you, but you have to be willing to get uncomfortable to get it. I honor you. I thank you for watching all the way to this, and keep going, because it's up to you to make it happen.